Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world of United States wheat pennies, and this time we are looking at three of the most valuable and desirable wheat pennies ever produced. These little 1-cent coins may look ordinary at first glance, especially if you find one dirty, scratched, worn, or heavily circulated, but certain dates, mint marks, varieties, and minting errors can make them incredibly valuable. The Lincoln wheat cent was produced from 1909 through 1958, and collectors continue searching old collections, coin jars, estate lots, and inherited collections for examples with unusual characteristics. Let's get started. First up, the 1946 United States Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark in circulated condition. At first glance, this old 1-cent coin may look ordinary, especially if it has scratches, dark toning, worn lettering, or other signs of circulation. But before you throw one into a jar of common pennies, it is worth understanding exactly what you have. The 1946 no mint mark wheat penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and an enormous 991,655,000 examples were produced that year. Now, there is an important point that every collector should understand. A 1946 no mint mark wheat penny in circulated condition is not normally a rare or extremely expensive coin. In fact, ordinary circulated examples generally trade for only a small premium over face value. However, the story changes dramatically when you find an unusually well-preserved specimen, an authenticated error, or a coin with exceptional color and grade. Some high-grade 1946 Philadelphia cents have brought hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. So, in this video, we will explore the history, design, rarity, collector demand, realistic market values, and the important details that could make one example much more desirable than another. The Lincoln wheat penny was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The famous design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, with Lincoln's portrait appearing on the obverse and two wheat stalks surrounding the words 1 cent in United States of America on the reverse. The wheat reverse remained on the Lincoln cent until 1958, making these coins one of the most recognizable and collectible series in American numismatics. The year 1946 is particularly interesting because it came immediately after World War II. During the war, the United States Mint temporarily changed the composition of the cent in 1943, producing zinc-coated steel cents because copper was needed for the war effort. By 1944, the mint returned to copper-based cents, and in 1946 the traditional copper alloy continued. The 1946 Philadelphia cent has a listed weight of approximately 3.11 grams, a diameter of about 19 millimeters, and a plain edge. The absence of a mint mark is not an error on this coin. It tells us that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not place a mint mark on cents of this period. In 1946, Denver produced approximately 315.69 million cents, and San Francisco produced about 198.1 million, while Philadelphia produced a much larger 991.655 million. One of the first things to examine is the obverse. You should see Abraham Lincoln's portrait facing right, with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1946. Directly below the date, there should be no letters such as D or S. That empty area is exactly what you expect on a Philadelphia minted 1946 cent. Turn the coin over and examine the wheat reverse carefully. Two wheat ears frame the central inscriptions 1 cent in United States of America, with E pluribus unum above them. On a circulated example, the wheat lines may be partially worn, and the surface can range from reddish-brown to dark brown depending on its history and exposure. The condition is extremely important. A circulated coin may have noticeable contact marks, scratches, discoloration, rim damage, or flattened details. These imperfections normally reduce collector value. By contrast, a coin that somehow survived decades with sharp details and original color can become much more interesting. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC distinguish different grades and color designations, including brown, red-brown, and red. Here is where we need to separate historical age from true numismatic rarity. A coin being approximately 80 years old does not automatically make it rare. The 1946 Philadelphia wheat penny had a very large production run of nearly 1 billion pieces, and many examples survived. NGC describes the issue as common in most grades. although there is a significant decline in certified populations at the very highest mint state levels. For an ordinary circulated 1946 no-mint mark cent, collector demand is generally modest. A heavily worn example might be worth only a few cents above face value, while a nicer circulated example can bring somewhat more. Current market guides generally place ordinary circulated examples in roughly the 5 cents to 50 cents range, with exact value depending on grade, appearance, buyer demand, and whether the coin has any unusual characteristics. So if your 1946 wheat penny is scratched, dirty, heavily worn, or damaged, don't expect it to automatically be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The real opportunity is finding something that separates your coin from the millions of ordinary survivors. Let's talk realistic numbers. For a normal 1946 Philadelphia wheat penny with no mint mark in circulated condition, a reasonable general range is around 5 cents to 50 cents, although individual transactions can vary. Coins around good to fine condition generally have limited premiums, while very fine or extremely fine examples with attractive surfaces can bring more. These are market guide ranges rather than guaranteed selling prices. For comparison, NGC's published guide for the 1946 Philadelphia cent lists very low values at circulated grades and increasing values as a coin enters mint state. Its displayed guide ranges from just a few cents in lower grades to several dollars and beyond in higher grades, demonstrating how strongly condition influences a price. But now comes the exciting part. Exceptional uncirculated examples can be worth dramatically more than circulated coins. PCGS records an auction record of $14,950 for a 1946 Philadelphia Lincoln cent graded MS67 red, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2006. Next up, a United States 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, especially one found in dainty, circulated condition. At first glance, this old brown penny may look ordinary, worn, or even worthless, but the 1944 wheat penny has an important place in American numismatic history because it was produced during the final years of World War II. The big question is, how rare is a 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny, and how much could one actually be worth in today's market? The answer may surprise you, because while the normal 1944 Philadelphia cent is not considered a major rarity in circulated condition, certain errors, varieties, and exceptionally preserved examples can be worth dramatically more. Before we talk about huge auction prices, however, it is important to separate the ordinary 1944 copper wheat penny from the famous 1944 steel cent era. A standard 1944 Philadelphia penny has no mint mark and was struck in a 95% copper alloy, while the extremely rare 1944 steel cents were accidental wartime errors. PCGS identifies the regular 1944 Philadelphia issue as having a mintage of 1,435,400,000 coins, making the ordinary no-mint mark example a very common date compared with genuinely scarce Lincoln cents. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny was produced during an extraordinary period in American history. The United States was deeply involved in World War II, and the mint was making major changes to coin production because of shortages of important metals. In 1943, the Lincoln cent was changed from its traditional bronze composition to zinc-coated steel in an effort to conserve copper for the war. However, the steel cent created several problems, including corrosion and confusion with silver-colored coins. In 1944, the mint returned to a copper-based composition. PCGS records a standard 1944 cent as 95% copper with tin and zinc, weighing approximately 3.11 grams and measuring 19 millimeters across. The 1944 Philadelphia issue is particularly interesting because it carries no mint mark. This does not mean the coin is missing a mint mark because of damage or an error. Instead, it means the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where Lincoln cents traditionally carried no mint letter. Denver coins from the same year have a D, while San Francisco coins have an S. Philadelphia produced approximately 1.435 billion regular 1944 cents, making this no-mint mark version the largest of the 3 regular 1944 issues. Another fascinating part of the 1944 story is a connection to wartime shell casings. For many years, collectors commonly described the 1944 cents as being made from recycled ammunition shell casings. While wartime brass material was incorporated into some coinage, numismatic research has challenged the idea that the entire enormous production of 1944 cents was made exclusively from shell casings. The sheer scale of production makes that claim difficult to support. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny features a familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Lincoln faces right, with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1944. On the reverse are the classic two wheat ears surrounding the word 1 cent in United States of America, along with the phrase "E pluribus unum." This iconic wheat reverse was designed by Victor David Brenner and remained a defining feature of Lincoln cents from 1909 through 1958, though if your coin is dirty, you may notice dark brown, reddish-brown, blackish, or uneven coloration. That appearance alone does not make the coin rare. In fact, many circulated 1944 cents naturally develop darker surfaces after decades of handling, storage, exposure to moisture, and contact with other metals. Collectors generally evaluate the coin's actual condition, surfaces, damage, color, and originality rather than simply judging how old or dark it looks. One of the most important things to inspect is the date. Make sure the coin genuinely reads 1944 and that the final digit is not worn or altered. Then examine the area below the date and to the right of Lincoln's portrait where a mint mark would appear on Denver or San Francisco examples. If there is no mint mark, that is normal for a Philadelphia 1944 cent. The most exciting possibility is discovering something unusual rather than simply having a normal 1944 cent PCGS list 1944 steel as a separate major variety from the regular bronze issues. Genuine 1944 steel cents are extraordinarily rare, and they should never be confused with an ordinary dainty copper cent. A questionable-looking coin should be professionally authenticated before anyone assumes it is a major rarity. Now let's talk about the condition described in today's video. Dirty condition. This is where expectations become very important. A dirty 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny is generally not rare simply because it is dirty. In fact, PCGS describes a regular 1944 issue as abundant in circulated grades, and surviving examples can still be found today. Collectors understand that coin's value is strongly influenced by condition. A heavily circulated coin with scratches, corrosion, stains, environmental damage, or harsh cleaning will normally sell for much less than a beautiful original coin with sharp details. For a dainty example, collectors may be interested because it is an affordable piece of World War II or American history, but they generally will not pay extraordinary prices unless the coin contains something genuinely unusual. This distinction is extremely important for YouTube viewers and new collectors. You may see online claims suggesting that every 1944 wheat penny is worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars. Those claims can be misleading. The famous high dollar figures associated with 1944 cents generally involve rare errors or exceptional high-grade examples, not an ordinary dainty Philadelphia cent. The regular issue had a huge mintage of 1,435,400,000 coins. Nevertheless, collector demand for wheat pennies remains strong because the series is one of the most popular American coin series ever produced. A complete Lincoln wheat cent collection requires many dates and mint marks, so collectors still want affordable examples of common dates. A dirty 1944 penny can therefore have historical and collecting interest even when its monetary value is modest. So, how much is a 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny in dirty circulated condition worth today? For a normal example with significant wear and no major error, the answer is generally only a small amount above. Next up, the United States Lincoln wheat penny from 1951 with a D mint mark, specifically one found in damaged condition. At first glance, a worn, scratched, stained, or otherwise damaged wheat penny may look like an ordinary 1-cent coin with very little value. But collectors know that the date, mint mark, condition, originality, and overall eye appeal can make a major difference. The 1951 D Lincoln wheat cent is an interesting coin because it was produced in large numbers, yet exceptionally high-grade examples can command surprisingly strong prices. So, could a damaged 1951 D wheat penny be worth more than 1 cent? The answer is potentially yes, but it is important to understand realistic market values rather than assuming every old wheat penny is rare or worth thousands of dollars. Current market data shows ordinary examples generally trade for modest amounts, while exceptional certified examples can bring dramatically higher prices. The 1951 D Lincoln wheat penny was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small D mint mark beneath the date on the obverse side of the coin. The Lincoln wheat cent design, created by Victor David Brenner, had already been in production for decades by 1951. The obverse features a familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, while the reverse displays two wheat ears surrounding the words 1 cent in United States of America. The 1951 D issue was produced in a substantial quantity of approximately 625,355,000 coins, making it far from a low mintage issue. It was made from a traditional bronze composition used for Lincoln cents of this era, approximately 95% copper with the remainder primarily tin and zinc, and has a standard diameter of about 19 millimeters and a weight of about 3.11 grams. The large production number is one of the most important facts to remember when discussing the rarity of this coin. A coin can be old without being rare. Millions of 1951 D wheat pennies were produced, and many survived because collectors saved rolls and examples during the period. Professional grading information also indicates that the 1951 D issue is particularly interesting in the highest mint state grades rather than in ordinary circulated condition. In other words, the real rarity story is not simply the date and mint mark. It is a combination of the 1951 D date with an unusually high grade, strong color, attractive surfaces, and excellent preservation. One of the first features to inspect is a 1951 date on the obverse. Even if the coin is heavily worn, the date should be carefully examined because an authentic and clearly identifiable date establishes a basic variety. Next, look underneath the date for the D mint mark, which confirms that the coin was struck at Denver. On the reverse, examine the wheat stalks, lettering, denomination, and overall details. A damaged coin may have scratches, dents, corrosion, discoloration, environmental staining, cleaning marks, or even surface erosion. These problems can significantly reduce collector appeal, but they do not necessarily make the coin completely worthless. Another interesting characteristic of the 1951 D cent is a condition rarity. While ordinary circulated examples are readily available, high-grade pieces with attractive original color are much harder to find. NGC notes that the 1951 issue can be difficult in the very highest red grades, while market records show that premium examples of the 1951 D can sell for substantially more than ordinary circulated coins. Now let us talk specifically about the damaged condition of the coin. This is where collectors need to be realistic. A 1951 D wheat penny with major scratches, heavy environmental damage, cleaning, corrosion, deep dents, or other serious problems normally does not receive the same premium as a problem-free collectible example. In fact, many damaged pieces may sell for only a small amount above face value, depending on their appearance and whether a collector needs a date for a collection. However, damage does not automatically mean worthless. If the date and D mint mark are clearly visible, the coin is genuine, and the damage is not severe enough to destroy its overall appearance, it may still attract collectors of circulated wheat cents. Some collectors enjoy building complete date and mint mark sets and may be interested in an inexpensive 1951 D example even when it is heavily circulated. Current completed sale data includes ordinary 1951 D examples selling for around 79 cents to $1.04, illustrating how modest a market can be for typical circulated pieces. The key point is that the 1951 D is not considered rare simply because it is from 1951. Its large mintage of 625,355,000 means that common circulated specimens are not particularly scarce. The exciting rarity comes when you move into exceptional grades. A famous example illustrates this perfectly. A PCGS MS68 red 1951 D Lincoln cent, described as the sole finest PCGS example at the time, realized $6,600 at a heritage auction in January 2020. That price was achieved because of extraordinary preservation and grade, not because every 1951 D cent is inherently a $6,000 coin. So, what could your damaged 1951 D wheat penny actually be worth today? There is no single fixed price because the value depends heavily on the severity of the damage, amount of wear, color, surfaces, authenticity, and buyer demand. Current market guides put ordinary ungraded 1951 D examples around the low dollar range, while price charting currently lists approximately $1.45 for an ungraded example, around $6.54 in VF, about $9.20 in AU, and roughly $16 to $32.70 in MS62 to MS66. These figures are market estimates rather than guaranteed auction prices, and individual coins can sell for more or less. For a genuinely damaged example, a realistic expectation may be well recognizable. Attractive circulated example with only minor problems could beginners make the mistake of polishing or using chemicals to make an old coin look brighter. Unfortunately, cleaning can leave permanent hairlines and unnatural surfaces, reducing the coin's desirability. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces, even when the coin has natural toning or moderate discoloration. Next, carefully inspect the date and thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more rare United States coin discoveries and fascinating auction values.